This is the Table for Two edition of the Deliberate Talks podcast, and I'm Dakshin Adyanthaya, here to navigate the frontiers of our evolving world with thought leaders who dare to look beyond their status quo. In today's episode, we dive into the industry that's on the verge of monumental revolution. It's an industry where technology intersects with one of humanity's most fundamental interests, sex. Yes, we're talking about a growing movement that's aiming to bring a change, advocating healthier and more open conversations around sex education and the role of technology within it. And in the forefront of the movement is an industry disruptor, a pioneer, and our guest for today's episode, Cindy Gallop. Cindy is the founder of MakeLoveNotPorn, the world's first social sex video sharing platform, normalizing sex to make it easier for everyone in the world to talk about it openly in order to promote and instill good sexual values and behavior. Apart from this, Cindy has spent over 30 years in brand building, marketing, advertising, and in 2003 was named as the Advertising Woman of the Year. Cindy was also named as one of the 15 most important marketing strategist thinkers of today by Business Insider. In our today's conversation, we discuss about the role of sex tech in changing societal attitudes and also unique potential it holds for empowering women and promoting healthier and consensual sexual relationships. All this with Cindy Gallop right after this short intro. Hello, Cindy. Welcome to the show. How you been?
I'm good. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome, Cindy. And I'm going to start this conversation with a warm-up question. And I'm going to ask you to tell me, if you didn't call it Make Love Not Porn, what would you call it?
Honestly, I can't think of any other name because Make Love Not Porn just encapsulates my business so perfectly. And, it's interesting, Dakshin, because back when I started Make Love Not Porn 14 years ago, in its original iteration as a clunky little porn world versus real world site, at the time it was a side venture. And I thought, I'm going to create something of a public service here. I need to call it something that is short, memorable, where I can buy the URL. Make Love Not War, Make Love Not Porn. That's about as much thought as went into it at the time. Little did I realize that I now own the definitive call to action in this arena. Because every day, hundreds of young people hashtag Make Love Not Porn across every social channel and think they're the very first person who ever thought of saying that. And when I meet people, they ask what I do. When I say I'm the founder and CEO of Make Love Not Porn, without even knowing exactly what it is, they know exactly why it exists. So, I really can't envisage any other name.
Right. And tell me about the day when you had this discussion, what went behind it saying this is the name? What was that discussion in the boardroom or you came up with when you were telling, like you mentioned, to the other people in the room, right? What was that conversation like?
Well, it was only me, because Make Love Not Porn is kind of an accident. It started as a little side venture, as I said. And so that was just me saying to myself, yeah, Make Love Not Porn makes sense. And MakeLoveNotPorn.com is available, and MakeLoveNotPorn. A whole bunch of other, URLs that I've bought. So yeah, that was it.
Awesome, and it goes great in the T-shirt as well in the merchandise,
exactly.
The files. Awesome, Cindy. I'm now going to begin our round of insightful discussions with something you recently mentioned in one of your talks, and that is Make Love Not Porn's sixth highest source of traffic comes from India. And now this is a country where sex is still a hush-hush conversation. And it continues to be a very sensitive topic amongst friends and family members. Now, as an individual or as Make Love Not Porn, how do you make a tailor-made approach to a unique culture or societal dynamics of the Indian market? How do you approach this?
Sure. So great question, Dakshin, because ever since I launched Make Love Not Porn, even in its original iteration, 14 years ago with my TED Talk, people from India have been writing to us all the time, especially young people, by the way, saying we need Make Love Not Porn here in India. Please launch a local version. And so for years, I've been trying to find on the ground Indian investors to fund Make Love Not Porn India, because we're tiny bootstrapping. I'm working to raise funding for Make Love Not Porn generally at the moment. And so I need funds and partners to be able to do this. And, I have a very specific strategy for markets like India, China, where young people write to us all the time as well, for how we would launch Make Love Not Porn in markets where there are, very strong repressive scenarios around anything to do with sex.
Right.
Despite the fact that, as I say, and as you spotted, without doing any promotion in India, India has been our sixth highest source of traffic for years, which gives you some idea of how much India wants us. So there are two principles of approach. So first of all, I would use funding to hire an Indian team, on the ground in India, because this is really important. Make Love Not Porn India will be, to all intents and purposes, a homegrown business. It would absolutely be redesigned and repackaged and represented to be, an Indian venture that absolutely takes into account, Indian culture and sensibilities. And by the way, the core business will absolutely be the same, because I can promise you that there will be, no shortage both of Indian members and Indian contributors, or as we call them, Make Love Not Porn stars. But we would absolutely redesign the way we operated in India to be localized. And then the second principle is, in a market like India, this would absolutely not be about going in and going, whoopee, Make Love Not Porn is here. I believe that change happens from the bottom up, not the top down. Okay? Every one of us, every day, taking small actions to change the world the way we want to see it change, cumulatively adds up at scale to enormous impact. So I would want to launch Make Love Not Porn at a grassroots level in India, speaking to our core audience, who are millennials and Gen Z, the generations that have grown up with porn, need us and know why they need us. And I would want to effectively rise without trace, by which I mean, by the time there's a much broader public awareness of the fact that we are there in India, we are doing so much good that no one can argue with the positive, beneficial social impact. So that's how I would approach it.
Right. But tell me about even, and you did mention this, that you have already approached a couple of people in terms of conversation related to, funding and everything else. When you talk about India as a market, how do the investors behave for a model like this?
Sure. So I've talked very broadly to a number of Indian audiences about this, and honestly, everybody says, "Oh my God, this is so needed." Especially. One of the things I'm working to raise funding for at the moment at a global level, but this would absolutely embrace India as well, is, I want to build the 0 to 18 and beyond expansion of Make Love Not Porn, which is what I describe as the Khan Academy of sex education. Because Khan Academy tutors on every other topic under the sun except this one. Educational technology, EdTech, is exploding, but not in this area. And so I want to build MakeLoveNotPorn.academy. I bought the URL many years ago. There's a very old holding page there. And this will basically be built out on the same principles of MakeLoveNotPorn.tv, which are user-generated, crowdsourced, curated revenue share. Because I'm not about reinventing the wheel. Make Love Not Porn Academy is an aggregation play. I want to build the go-to global hub for the best of the world's sex education content. So the way this will work, and anybody from anywhere can fund the academy. So anyone who's listening, absolutely hit me up. But the way this will work is we'll build a platform for the academy, and we will then invite sex educators all around the world to share with us their own content. Coursework materials, videos, books, comic strips, whatever it may be. And when I use the term educator, I use it very broadly. This will be for sexual health and wellness experts to share their content, sex therapists to share their content, anybody informing and educating in this entire area. Now, we will curate because at the heart of everything Make Love Not Porn does lies human curation. We only ever publish what we have approved and endorsed, which is why, by the way, we are the safest place on the internet. There's no self-publishing of anything. We human curate everything. And then we will segment all of this content. We'll publish it segmented by age appropriateness. So what that means is if you are a parent freaking out going, oh my God, my 6-year-old just asked this question, what do I say? Here's where you would find age-appropriate tools and content to be able to have that conversation with a 6-year-old. If you are a teacher with a class of 14-year-olds, here are your age-appropriate teaching materials. If you're an adult, access all areas because adults are desperate for all of this information as much as anybody else. But the important thing, Dakshin, is that the academy will be where children and young people can access sex education without parental teacher gatekeeping. And here's why that's important. I have a friend who's a mother, and as you have to these days, she monitors her kids' browsing history. And so this incident happened a few years ago. Her son was 8 years old. She saw that on the family computer, he had Googled sex for children. See, she was, oh my God, but did the right thing, stayed calm, sat him down, went, darling, I see you've done this. Talk me through why. And this anecdote is adorable and horrifying in equal measure because her son wanted to learn about sex. He was a child. He knew he was a child. He wanted to learn about sex in a child-appropriate way. So sweetly and innocently, he Googled sex for children. You can imagine what came back. The poor kid was utterly traumatized. So the academy will be where an 8-year-old boy can enter his age, and we will only serve him age-appropriate sex education content. Now, some of this will be free to access, per that example, but we'll also charge to download, subscribe, bulk buy if you're a school. There are different revenue streams, different use cases. We're talking a huge revenue generator, by the way. And we will then split the income 50-50 with its creators, the educators, in the same way that at Make Love Not Porn we currently do with our Make Love Not Porn stars. And the reason for that, actually, is because right now, nobody goes into sex education to make money. I have friends all around the world who are brilliant sex educators. They face all the same challenges I do. Their content gets blocked on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They're not allowed to advertise. They can't make a living doing this. They've had to take other jobs to survive. I want to change that because this is enormously valuable work. And, I'll give an example of, an Indian friend whose work I'm dying to showcase, the brilliant Paramita Vora, whose background is filmmaking. She started this wonderful company, Agents of Ish, that they create, Indian, culturally appropriate, sensitive sex education content. It's fantastic. They do videos that spoof Bollywood musical numbers to make points about consent. They just produce the most amazing content. And every time they produce something new, I share it, across my social channels. But some years back, I said to Paro, honestly, your videos are brilliant. Why do they only get like 50,000 views on YouTube? And she said, because I cannot distribute these within India. I cannot showcase these in India in the way they should be. And so I want to change that for her, but also imagine the appeal, not only for audiences in India, but the entire Indian diaspora all around the world of being able to access sex education content that is by your community for your community.
Cindy, wonderful stuff there with the academy. Now, because you mentioned academy, and this is something of my personal interest as well. A couple of years ago, I started a conversation because I run a training institute for digital marketing. I actually wanted to get into a school level education factor as well. Now, when I spoke to a couple of parents who were a part of the digital marketing training program, they were entrepreneurs. And, one of these fathers came to me and he said, I need to have a conversation with my 7-year-old daughter who came to me and asked, Dada, what is the meaning of fuck? And his first reaction was, where did you learn that word from, right? And he still hasn't really found a way to have a conversation with the kid. And she said it's because my friends around just keep talking about the word and telling it around and just casually using it in the classroom. Now, he's worried about it. And when we got into a deeper conversation, we started talking to a couple of schools. The schools blame it on the parents, saying they don't want it to be a part of the conversation. The parents blame it on the schools, saying they're not having a safe conversation around it. We're not sure whether it should be in the open along with the other peers. Now, the beautiful part about it, when you spoke about the 8-year-old kid trying to access porn, right? Now, in this also comes another conversation related to when schools and children are not really aware of it, what they're exposed to is certain things like revenge porn or online cyberbullying or all those aspects of it which comes along with it because of lack of education. Now, in a process like this, how does Make Love Not Porn step into it, probably, or of Sextech entrepreneurs find this as an opportunity to have this conversation with schools and more than parents.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. If only I can get the funding for the academy, that will provide all the resources anybody could want, parents and schools alike. And the reason it's so important that this is funded, Dakshin, is because, as I said, nothing like this currently exists. There are a lot of very good sex education initiatives all over the internet. I have a network of brilliant sex educated friends all around the world, but it's really hard to find, especially because double standards and hypocrisy apply as much to Google and to search and to social channels as the world at large. Even if you go looking for healthy sex education, you can't find it because it's blocked, it's censored. So that's why the academy is so important. And in the meantime, ahead of that, I've been giving parents two important pieces of advice for many years. And again, I really want the academy funded because then I can stop doing this myself. But here's what I say to parents. And, this is also what I would advise schools to think about. So I say to parents, these days, you cannot begin talking to your child about sex too early. And when I say that, I don't mean literally talk about sex. What I mean is the very first time your child asks a question, where do babies come from? The very first time they play with their genitals, whatever. The most important thing isn't even what you say as much as how you say it. What I say to parents is never, ever get visibly flustered. Never get embarrassed. Never shut the conversation down. Never leave the room. Don't change the topic. Instead, answer your child calmly, straightforwardly, honestly. Because when you do that, you open up a channel of communication for them around this whole area that will always be there for them as they grow older. And you really want that to be the case. Okay. I find it funny, Dakshin, because, all parents want is for their children to be happy. We are talking about the area of universal human experience that will impact their child's happiness more than any other. And so if you are not willing to engage in open communication with your child about this, then you are consigning your child to unhappiness. I guarantee it. Okay? And then the second thing I say to parents is today, when you talk to your child about sex, you must also, at the same time, talk to your child about porn. Especially because the average age today at which a child is first exposed to hardcore porn online is 8 years old. And in fact, studies done years ago indicated it's as low as 6. And this is a lot easier to do than most parents think, because all you do is you say a version of what I'm about to give you, and you dial it up or down depending on the age of the child. So you say to the child, so darling, we just talked about sex. And you know how together we watch movies and videos and cartoons where things happen that aren't real. Well, there are also movies and videos about sex, and they're not real either. And because of that, they can be quite confusing. And so we would rather you did not watch them till you're older. But if anybody ever shows you anything like that, or you stumble across it, come and talk to us. We can explain it. That's all you have to say. Because just by saying that, you've done two very important things. The first is you've set up in their minds, when they stumble across porn, as they will, that it's not real. And the second thing is you've said, come and talk to us about it. And it's very important that you encourage them to do that, because what children stumble across online today can be utterly traumatizing.
What I really also want to touch upon is from the industry perspective, right? Now, from a business standpoint, given societal, cultural, and legal challenges like we earlier spoke about, how did you navigate these challenges from different countries' perspective, not just India? I'm sure when you started, you also, came across a lot of other challenges. What are some of the lessons that aspiring sex tech entrepreneurs can learn from your journey?
Sure. So for 14 years, Dakshin, I've parallel pathed two things: working to build Make Love Not Porn and working to change the business and cultural context around it. Because when you have a truly world-changing startup, You have to change the world to fit it, not the other way around. So, I did not realize when I embarked on this venture that I and my tiny team would fight an enormous battle every single day to build it. Basically because every piece of business infrastructure any other tech startup can take for granted, we can't. The small print always says no adult content. And that is all pervasive, across funding, banking, payments, tech services. And, what I can tell you is it's a very good thing that what most motivates me is the dynamic that I characterize as, and I will censor myself slightly for this podcast, I'm going to bloody well show you. You tell me it can't be done, I'm going to bloody well show you. You can observe my path, I'm going to bloody well show you. So, I have managed to take Make Love Not Porn to a level of social and business acceptance that no other Sextech venture has achieved. And the great thing is that 14 years later, the barriers are falling because people understand how necessary we are. So 14 years ago, I was the very first person to stand up on a stage publicly at TED and identify that when we don't talk openly about sex, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. Today, 14 years later, you can't turn around without falling over a media headline going, oh my God, kids and porn. So the good thing now is that everybody understands the issue and everybody understands why at Make Love Not Porn we're doing what we're doing. And so I am absolutely breaking down those barriers and seeing them fall because of that.
Super. And I'm going to dig into that conversation a little more in the next round. But before that, tell me some of the remarkable insights, facts, stories that have made women and men believe in the business model of what you call as human happiness with Make Love Not.
Sure. So, as a unique business, and I realize I should just explain to our audience that, today, Make Love Not Porn is the world's first and only user-generated, 100% human-curated social sex video sharing platform. So we are pioneering a whole new category, social sex, that's never existed before. We're kind of what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, socially, sexually self-express, which obviously it doesn't. So the way to think about us is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, loving, messy, wonderful, comical sex we all have in the real world. We are socializing, normalizing, and destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to promote consent, communication, good sexual values, and good sexual behavior. We are literally sex education through real-world demonstration. And we operate completely uniquely. And I want to speak to that because I think it's important that our listeners understand that everything I'm talking to you about is the future of the internet when it is designed and built through the female lens. And we don't see enough of that because female founders don't get funded. So I designed Make Love Not Porn through the female lens to be the safest place on the internet. The reason that's necessary is because the young white male founders out of Silicon Valley of the giant tech platforms that dominate our lives today, they are not the primary targets, online or offline, of harassment, abuse, sexual assault, racism, violence, rape, revenge porn. Therefore, they did not and they do not proactively design for the prevention of any of those things on their platforms. And we see the results of that around us every single day. Those of us who are most at risk every single day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, the disabled, we design safe spaces and safe experiences because we design platforms not to have any of those things happen to anybody on our platforms. So I designed Make Love Not Porn to be the safest place on the internet because I designed it around what everybody else should have, nobody else did, human curation. There is no self-publishing of anything on Make Love Not Porn. Our curators watch every single video submitted from beginning to end before we approve or reject, and we publish it. Nobody else anywhere on the internet does that. We review every post on every member profile. And by the way, on Make Love Not Porn, your profile posts can be as safe work or not safe work as you like, but we review them, we approve or reject them, and we publish them. Nobody else anywhere does that. We review every comment on every video. We approve or reject, and we publish. Nobody else does that. We can vouch for every single piece of content on our platform in a way that nobody else can. And that is why we are the safest place on the internet. Imagine the internet with women funded to operate like this. So, as a unique business, we have a unique capability. Make Love Not Porn has the power to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better in a way that nothing else can. So, over the 10 years we operate as a business, we've heard from our community that we have educated many young people on the fact that porn is not sex in the real world. We have saved countless marriages and relationships. We've helped inspire communications breakthroughs for couples because we're social sex. You watch our videos together. We have helped people with, health issues to, regain sexual function. We hear from people post-cancer, women going through menopause, because again, this is the real world. And so we have on our platform real world sex videos submitted by people who are, going through menopause, sharing the challenge that brings up with sex, how they and their partner accommodate, etc. But what is really amazing is, like any truly disruptive technology, use cases emerge the founder never dreamed of. So what blows me away is not just how well Make Love Not Porn does what I designed it to do, but how well it does things I never designed it to do. So we hear regularly from survivors of rape, sexual assault, sexual abuse. We hear from female survivors, male survivors, trans non-binary survivors. They tell us that Make Love Not Porn helped them reclaim their bodies. We help them feel able to be sexual again in a situation where porn is way too triggering. And we hear this not just from people who watch our videos, but from our contributors, our Make Love Not Porn stars. We have several Make Love Not Porn stars who tell us that being able to share themselves sexually in a completely safe and trustworthy space has helped them process and heal from sexual trauma. And I'm so humbled by that because that's not a use case I ever envisaged. But here's also what's interesting, Dakshin. So I designed to Make Love Not Porn be fully diverse and inclusive, and we are. But in the 10 years we've operated, we've observed that we are especially a revelation to men. More men send Make Love Not Porn grateful emails, leave appreciative comments than anybody else, because we are something unique that men will find nowhere else on the internet, which is a safe space where men can be and watch other men being open, emotional, and vulnerable around sex. You would not believe the number of men who write to us and say, I just watched my first video on Make Love Not Porn and afterwards I cried. I've been saying for years, I wish society understood the opposite of what it thinks is true. Women enjoy sex just as much as men, and men are just as romantic as women. Yet neither gender is allowed to openly celebrate either fact. We'd all be a lot better off if they were. Men leave comments in our videos saying things like, this makes me want to be a better man in the bedroom and in life. We are one of the solutions to toxic masculinity. And so, at the end of the day, Dakshin, our mission is to help end rape culture globally.
Sure.
We help end rape culture by doing something very simple that nevertheless nobody else anywhere is doing. We help end rape culture by showing you how wonderful, great, consensual, communicative sex is in the real world. Our social sex videos role model good sexual values and good sexual behavior. And here's the important part. We make all of that aspirational versus what you see in porn and popular culture.
Right. Wow. That's some fabulous insights, Cindy, and thank you for sharing that. And, I'm also going to touch upon the last question about you as a personality. Very vocal about everything you do in life and what you stand for and how you put it in the right words in the previous question. As a businesswoman with experiences, I'm sure you're attached with a lot of labels like thick-skinned, cold-hearted, stone-hearted, and so on. Like a lot of entrepreneurs eventually are labeled as, right? How do women and men achieve this Zen mode like you to life criticism? What are your pro tips?
So first of all, nobody has ever called me cold-hearted and stone-hearted. In fact, I hate to say, in fact, profiles regularly comment on how much I'm a nice person. And by the way, Dakshin, I'm really asked in interviews, something like, what are the 3 words you'd use to describe yourself? And my response is always ask other people. Because I don't, the best way to know what I'm like is to ask other people what they think of me. But what I would say to you is, I encourage everyone, if they've never done this, to take a long, hard look within themselves and identify what they stand for, what they believe in, what they value, what they're all about. Because when you do that, that makes life so much simpler. Life still throws you all the shit it always will, but you know exactly how to respond to it in any given situation in a way that is true to you. Because that is the secret of happiness, living your life and working your work according to your own values.
Right.
And so that's what I do every day. And I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks because I know that I'm operating according to my own values.
Super. Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. With that, we end the first round of discussions. And now things are going to get a little pacey. And before we call it a wrap, I'm going to eat some questions at you. So, ready to flex your rapid fire skills? Okay, then. In 60 seconds, you got to answer this. Given your experience in advertising, sex tech, and entrepreneurship, 5 tips and advices you have for young women who aspire to disrupt the traditional male-dominated industry.
5 tips is too many. You only need one thing. Don't give a damn what anybody else thinks. That's the only way to live your life and work your work. Do not give a damn what anybody else thinks.
Super. In 50 seconds, how do you envision the future of Make Love Not Porn?
Basically, my investor deck at the moment has a quote from the original investor deck back in 2011, which says, I want to change the world through sex and make a huge amount of money doing it. So that's the future I envision.
Super. In 40 seconds, what's the most surprising thing you have learned since starting Make Love Not Porn?
Oh my God, I will just say to you that we are surprised every day, okay? Because as I've been saying for years, real world sex is more innovative, more creative, more surprising, more hot and arousing than porn will ever be. And so to this day, when our curators report each week on the latest videos they've curated, we're still going, wow, did not know that was a thing. So we're constantly surprised.
Right. Nice. In 30 seconds, Cindy, if advertising slogans were life mottos, what would yours be?
My slogan is on all my social media profiles. I like to blow shit up. I'm the Michael Bay of business.
Neat. And in 20 seconds, what's the most adventurous thing you have done?
Undoubtedly starting Make Love Not Porn.
Super. And finally, in 10 seconds, what's a unique and quirky habit you have which you're super proud of?
I guess, I don't know I say I'm super proud of this, but I speed read because I was a voracious reader when I was a kid. And so I just taught myself to speed read. And that is an incredibly useful skill. It was at university, as you can imagine, and it has been in the workplace ever since because I can read and absorb incredibly quickly. And it's just very helpful.
Super. And that's a wrap. That's entertaining, Max. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you so much for being a part of this awesome conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed hosting you. I hope you had a good time as well.
Oh, yep. No, this is a great conversation. And listeners, if there are any investors out there who get the enormous potential of Make Love Not Porn India, email cindy@makelovenotporn.com. I'd love to talk.
Delightful. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, Cindy. I look forward to having more conversations with you. And best wishes for Make Love Not Porn. And hope you get that investor really, really soon from India.
Thank you very much, Dakshin.
Cheers. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to all the audio and video channels of the Deliberate Talks podcast, powered by Pixelated Egg Digital Ventures. Join me next week for another story. Until then, be curious, be adventurous, and never stop learning. Peace.